Wildlife filmmakers expose themselves to angry and fierce animals, travel to remote areas, risk life and limb to capture amazing images. Here are some of the most exciting wildlife encounters on film. Cameroon, Central Africa. Here in the Wildlife Centre, there is a gamekeeper you certainly should not copy.
Come, chef. Very good food.
Alfred Bama feels at ease playing with the adult gorillas, the most powerful great apes on Earth. Afraid of close contact? No way. He joins in even the roughest tussle. Anyone care for a bout of gorilla wrestling?
They are heavy, oh. Friends. So gorillas are for me like my brothers. And they are my brothers. That's why I'm playing with them. He's playing. You see that they really love me. I mean, they are playing and they are very happy. I think my relationship with this gorilla is because all the time I spend all my time playing with them. So I mean, they always see me here every day. So when I'm playing with them like this, they are so happy because they really love me and they trust me.
And he trusts them. Alaska. Wide open spaces, sparsely populated, rich in animal wildlife, and home to 50,000 grizzlies. The wildlife filmmaker Andreas Keeling has known many of them for several years now and wants to introduce his son to his hairy acquaintances.
It's strange. This female bear just won't leave the valley. She stays here all year round and feeds on grass.
He knows just how to handle the grizzlies.
If I approach a grizzly using a calm voice and talking to them, they realize I'm no threat.
Even so, caution is always recommended. Young bears are especially keen on hunting, and it's hard to tell its mood from its expression. But this one's in a good mood. Andreas is particularly keen on filming the grizzlies catching fish. Salmon fishing is a challenge for the bears, even though the fish are plentiful when migrating upstream. Andreas is ignored. The bears are in fish fever. It's evening, and now Eric has an appetite for fish.
Bring him in, but be careful you don't snap the line. It's a big one.
Success.
Your first salmon, super.
While Andreas is taking underwater shots, Eric cuts his fish, unaware that he's being watched. It would be an easy catch for the grizzly, who has been lured by the smell of fresh salmon. Eric is completely on his own. A tricky situation. Eric keeps his cool. The extra strong pepper spray scares the bear away.
Are you okay?
Yes.
Father and son decide they'll be more careful in future. But for now, they'll sit down and enjoy Eric's well-defended catch.
And? Just the way it should be.
The islands of South Georgia, a hostile place in the Antarctic Ocean, buried beneath glaciers. The air cools over the massive ice plains, creating fall winds which dry out the ground. An arid wilderness remains. Restricted by tight valleys, the winds gather speed. Gusts of up to 300 kilometers an hour lash at the coastline. But this bizarre environment is threatened by global warming. The Argentinian glacial scientist Jorge Strelin is documenting the changes in this icy world. Here, in this glacial arch, he hopes to find information about the ice movement. A dangerous place to be, even for the experienced. Jorge slips and falls more than 6 meters down into the icy waters. It's only after being swept along for 400 meters that he can free himself from the tearing current. He's safe and has only a few scratches to show. A few minutes longer, and he would have paid for the expedition with his life. Jorge is lucky. He has gathered valuable information to take back home. Information that will help scientists understand more about the climate change. Greenland. Here, nature is harsh and hostile. This explains why the Inuit call upon metaphysical powers via the Tupilak to help them. The wildlife filmmaker Uwe Anders accidentally broke the legs off one of these figures in a museum. Things have been going wrong ever since.
A meltwater lake caved in, flowed beneath the glacier. Huge chunks of ice broke off. We kept filming until it was too dark. We'd already packed up all our stuff, and I said I'd go to the spot we'd been to check if we had left anything behind. When I go back to my assistant, I can see from his expression that something's happening. I turn around and see a 30-meter chunk break off and fall. We started running. If I'd been there 10 seconds beforehand, the ice blocks would have got me. Perhaps the Tupilak didn't get me, because he had no legs, was too slow.
On his next Greenland trip, Uwe is certain to give the Tupilak a wide berth. The Namib Desert borders on the South Atlantic. On the coast there are seal colonies. These are what wildlife filmmakers Thomas Behrendt and Birgit Peters have come for. Their track leads them along the notorious Skeleton Coast, where whale bones are scattered along the beach. Up to now, everything has run smoothly, until one of their jeeps tips over onto its side.
Everything okay with you? Your knee's shaking. What's up?
Thankfully, no one's been hurt. After the initial shock, it's time to get the jeep back upright. Everyone has to lend a hand.
Dieter, is there enough time before high tide?
1.5 hours, then we have to be out of here.
Then the jeep will be flooded.
Yes.
It's a race against the incoming tide. The heavy off-road vehicle starts slipping away on the soft sand. The sea keeps on rising. They manage to upright the jeep just in time. Now it's full steam ahead. They want to get away from the coast. The seal colonies can be reached via the overland route as well. The Tai Forest on the Ivory Coast, the largest connected area of rainforest in West Africa. Wildlife filmmakers are here under the dense treetops to find the shy pygmy hippopotamus. As unique as these pictures are, cameraman Klaus Scheurich nearly paid for them with his life, since rainforests conceal life-threatening dangers, tropical diseases.
At Christmas, Klaus became really ill and contracted malaria. We treated that, but the medicine didn't agree with Klaus. That was the day after my birthday. We'd had a day off because we'd celebrated the evening before. And then in the morning, we'd just been chatting. I turned around for my book, pick it up, look back at Klaus, and there Klaus is. And he's dying. He looked like a terrible actor in an awful film, with his tongue hanging out and wheezing. The malaria was now really serious. The medicine he was taking prolongs the heartbeat intervals.
A few people have died like that. We knew this, but we didn't know why.
I really thought, he can't die here. How would I get him out of here, out of the rainforest and back home? How would I manage the funeral? Those are thoughts that cross your mind, you know. And in the meantime, you're doing everything in order to prevent the worst-case scenario. Anyway, I reanimated him. I've no idea how long it took. He came back to life, but the whole day he was, you saw it, how his eyes kept rolling away. So you had to keep on encouraging his heart to beat. And it worked. It really worked out.
It was great. I simply fell asleep and she kept waking me up. And the day was awful, of course. I was down with fever in my bed. And the bed was in a mud-walled hut. It was no fun.
But it was only afterwards that I started shaking. I was in shock. I curled up in embryo position and shook.
Yes, that was a bit awful somehow. That really was awful.
Yes.
So, wildlife filmmaker can be a dangerous job, even if the animals you are trying to film are harmless. The Scheurichs had to wait months for these shots because there are only 3,000 remaining pygmy hippos in the whole of West Africa. The Tai National Park is one of their last refuges. If it isn't protected, these might be the last images of wild pygmy hippos captured on film. Every year, gigantic herds of gnu cross the heart of the Serengeti in search of fresh grass. This precarious migration promises fantastic material for the wildlife filmmaking team. The gnus hesitate before crossing the river. They can sense hunters lurking nearby. Using a special camera, Ivo Nörenberg hopes to capture super slow motion pictures of crocodile attacks. In the meantime, Oliver Goetzl positions his normal remote camera to get close-ups of the gnus. To check that the image section and focus are correctly adjusted, Oliver puts himself into typical gnu position.
That's good.
The team watch what the remote camera is filming in suspense.
That's what we want, to see them splashing around.
The news aren't keen on the loss of privacy, though.
It looks okay. I didn't dare to hope.
If the lens hasn't been kicked, it's still in one piece. Wonderful. All is well, it's intact. Oh, look at that.
The remotely controlled camera has passed the new test. To recover from the shock, they look at what the super slow motion camera has filmed. The attack only lasted a second, too short a time for a normal camera.
He can't be seen, well camouflaged, shot directly out of the water.
The special camera films this action in up to 2,000 pictures per second, and a motion sequence never seen before is captured.
Hurls him into the air and he bites into empty space. It's really great to see how the water is churned up in front of him.
Even veteran filmmaker Reinhard Radke is thrilled. Reinhard will spend the next couple of days in a camouflage tent on the riverbank and in the vicinity of crocodiles.
I don't really like sitting in a camouflage tent because you have no alternative when something happens elsewhere. You just have to stay in there all day and wait for something to happen. But you get shots which would otherwise be impossible because the animals are merely meters away from you.
A good camouflage means unforeseen risks.
You wouldn't believe how big an animal is when it's only 1.5 meters away. You have to keep calm and keep your nerves under control, which is hard enough.
It seems the elephant hasn't noticed the tent. He's getting closer and closer. This could end fatally. A bit of luck is what's needed here. A successful day comes to an end. Pleased with their work, the team put up their tarpaulins. Nothing else to ward off intruders. Wildlife filmmakers often have to use the regional method of transportation, as these both do in the swamps of northeast India, in the Kaziranga National Park. Their goal? The Indian rhinoceros. But they have to keep a safe distance from the giants. Rhino mums defend their offspring against intruders resolutely. Since rhinos always use the same route when searching for food, the filmmakers position their remote-control cameras there. They hope to get close-up shots of a mother and her baby. She senses something fishy. She does a good job of destroying the camera. Thank goodness it's a remote control. As quickly as she is attacked, she also calms down. Her baby is safe. After all the excitement, they need a refreshing lug of Brahmaputra water. The coast of South Africa is renowned for shark attacks. A group of scientists want to find out just what triggers these attacks. On board, filmmaker Thomas Behrendt and his colleague Birgit Peters. They begin their experiment. The scent of bait should attract the sharks to Walter, their diving pal. How will the great whites react? Will they be more interested in Walter or the fish? A moment later, the first one appears. A human being would probably have just noticed the shark and would be panicking. But Walter stays cool, of course. The shark inches his way forward. He dares his first bite. Exploratory bite, as it's called. It's only the fish the shark wants, but because of reflections on the water's surface, he misses them and bites into the dummy. Finally, he does manage to get the bait and swims away. But how do white sharks react to real humans? Supported by the South African shark expert and long-team colleague Andre Hartmann, Thomas braves the sea water. For 1.5 decades, Thomas has been diving amongst white sharks. They both want to dive deeper to see how the white sharks will react to them. Most encounters have shown that, in general, sharks react indifferently to divers. Today is different, however. They are being observed by the same shark who dared to approach Walter a few minutes ago. A second shark appears. And then a third. The situation becomes unpredictable. White sharks are by no means loners, as previously assumed. And all three are interested in Thomas and Andre. Without warning, one of them attacks. Actually, Thomas should always have an eye on them, but with 3 sharks, that's impossible. The moment he looks in another direction, one of the sharks takes the opportunity. Fortunately, Andre reacts immediately and shoos him off.
Wow, you didn't see what almost happened behind your head.
One thing is clear. When divers encounter a white shark, they have to keep it in view, or it could be dangerous. So much in the life of the great whites is yet to be discovered. In order to live in accord with them, man must learn to understand them better and respect their habitat. That, in turn, would lead to less accidents. Norway, land of fjords and the northern lights, rough and untamed. That can also be said of the musk ox. The 300-kilogram heavy bulls in particular can be very dangerous if they feel threatened. The camera team is watched suspiciously, but the bulls' rutting fights are more important. Even so, the animals remain unpredictable. Nature filmmaker Jan Haft keeps his distance.
If a musk ox is irritated, you practically have no chance. There are no trees, the trees are minute, dwarf birches, you can't climb them. So what do? The musk ox is considerably faster, so you have to avoid any conflict. Taking close-up shots is definitely not recommended. We positioned a small remote control camera and hid ourselves 50 meters away. Along came a young bull, and this young lout saw something dodgy. And all of a sudden it went click, and he got angry. He started to butt his horn into it, but butted into the ground next to the camera instead. Then he managed to skewer it. The camera rolled over and stopped somewhere. He leapt up behind the camera, snorted as if he were cross at using up unnecessary energy, and then he trotted away. When he was gone, I went over quickly. I'd no idea how close he might still be. I thought it unlikely that he would come back again, but if he had, I'd have been only a few meters away from him.
Due to his courageous effort, Jan took these exceptional close-ups home. Andreas Keeling is on his way through North Canada. He manages to get close to a lone muskox. The filmmaker is already really close when his dog Sita starts getting excited. The muskox stays cool. Seen from his perspective, this tiny creature poses no threat. But the noise is somehow very irritating. Now, that was a feigned attack, but Andreas takes it as a warning. Sita, on the other hand, just won't give in. Before the muskox changes his mind, Andreas begins retreating. The East Siberian island of Wrangel. Muskoxen frequently visit this rustic abode. Uwe Anders can't resist this ideal opportunity. However, at dinner, he and his colleagues discover that the muskoxen aren't their only visitors.
Oh, I think polar bear is coming. Why? But he come in this direction. How many? I think only one. Oh, he's coming very close. Let's go to the front door.
The more polar bears there are on the island, the more often they turn up on the doorstep.
When it's suddenly right in front of you, that's a dangerous situation. When you have to pee, there are no toilets in the buildings. You have to go out into the tundra. And you should take a good look around, because polar bears move noiselessly. So when you go to the loo in the tundra, you have to take this rod with you, a roll of toilet paper and this rod.
Curious bears can cause a lot of damage. Window panes in particular are prone to breakage. A bear in the house. That is lethally dangerous for the inhabitants. That's why windows and doors, the house's weak spots, are barred up with robust wooden planks covered with nails. But even these don't always help. That's why it's good to keep polar bears at a distance.
The fewer polar bears you have in the place, the better. It's a latent danger. To unexpectedly come across a polar bear sleeping in a semi-derelict house, and you're passing by and it suddenly comes out of it. That's a situation you haven't prepared for. Keep the risk low.
Together with Ranger Alexei Bezrukov, Uwe decides to drive out the intrusive bear.
You try to make it clear to these polar bears that this place might become uncomfortable for them. For this purpose, the rangers have rifles which fire really bright and loud bullets, and also rubber bullets. At first, that scares the polar bear, but he runs only a few hundred meters away and then carries on as before. He notes, if he has his wits about him, next time, give that a wide berth. It isn't as if the bear is treated cruelly.
Of course, Uwe would rather film polar bears in the wilderness on Wrangel Island. Why does he dare to search for these mighty beasts when he is unarmed and in an open vehicle?
At the end of the day, it was obvious that the polar bears were much shyer than expected. So the problem wasn't that they came too close. It was more the problem of us simply getting close enough to them. One typical situation, a polar bear is asleep in the tundra, and you can get quite close to him. You can get within 30 to 40 meters, and that's what we did. And the wind was in our favor, so he couldn't smell us. We sat down really quietly and set up our equipment, but made a small noise even so. His head popped up, he saw us, and ran off straight away. Once he was behind a small hill, however, he had to take a look.
The famous saguaro. This gigantic cactus is the characteristic landmark in the Sonora Desert in the southwest of the USA. From its white flowers, you can tell that the monsoon will soon begin. Finally, after months of drought, the first drops start falling. These regularly recurring summer rains are the secret behind the richness in species. Nowhere else in the USA can this many cactus species be found. The cool rain brings relief for the wildlife too. But then, the soft rain turns into a torrent. The nature filmmaker Jan Sokochevsky doesn't want to miss this.
We wanted to film the torrential monsoon.
Jan knows going outside could be lethal. It's well known that things made of metal, such as tripods and cameras, attract lightning.
It's best if you position yourself on the mountain, something you shouldn't really be doing.
You don't really want to go outside, do you?
We've lost 2 or 3 cameras due to lightning.
Jan's commitment is rewarded with these archaic images. Illuminated by stroboscope flash, everything appears even more menacing. His pictures illustrate the gigantic dimensions of the torrential rainfalls.
You can't just stay in your car. You have to go outside.
For some desert dwellers, the water proves life-threatening. This Californian gopher tortoise has crept out of its underground den so it doesn't drown.
When it rains, the desert becomes a place of raging currents for 1 hour or two.
Jan could easily be swept away by the water masses.
The water pressure is extremely high here.
Your cable's hanging in the water.
It's broken anyway. It would look really great if I went in there, but I don't know.
After the downpour, the desert inhabitants start reappeaing.
We wanted to film a roadrunner moving in on a rattlesnake to see if it's edible. Roadrunners feed on rattlesnakes.
But this one is decisively too long for him.
Where is the snake, Jan?
Somewhere here. It was here just a moment ago. Then he got through there.
Is it gone? No, we'd have seen that.
Our cameraman, he's been bitten by a poisonous snake before. That's why he wanted to wear these special boots. He didn't want to repeat the experience. This guy's safe. No one can bite into that, that's for sure.
They can bite into it, but nothing will happen. The shins are well protected.
Hopefully. The poison from one bite would be enough to kill thousands of mice. Nevertheless, Jan is set on getting close-ups.
You really want to see them close up, and for that we used a small finger camera, which you can attach to a rod. Because as a cameraman, you don't want to put your head there.
The risky operation is rewarded.
You couldn't have filmed that better even with a big camera.
Beautiful. It didn't react to the camera. That was the beauty of it.
It came up really close. It wasn't in focus anymore. Probably saw its reflection.
Pleased with their booty, the wildlife filmmakers call it a day. The federal state of Kamchatka in southwest India is home to the rare sloth bear. What's unique? Here you can film the nocturnal animals in daylight. But before filmmakers Oliver Goetzl and Ivo Nörenberg begin shooting, there are time-consuming preparations to be made.
Our Indian friends are building a tower for us, which will later be camouflaged. It allows us to film the plateau behind that rock, where we hope to film a mother with her two young. Their lair is over there, and that's why we have to be able to film over the large rock.
The tower is being made by a locksmith in a neighbouring village. A week later, it's finished and has only to be erected.
That's a gigantic lever.
Unthinkable what would happen if the steel construction collapsed.
It's slipping. Go in there, further back.
Steel on steel is extremely slippery and hard to handle. A crane would have made the installation safer, but they are a rarity in this remote region.
We've got one. Only one.
After much discussion, the leaning tower is almost upright.
Sir, balance is...
You think so?
Yes.
Thanks to many helping hands, all has gone well.
The operation has been completed without casualties, though it looked rather dangerous.
The tower is standing. That's wonderful.
It stands and doesn't wobble. Ivo and Oliver can do without wobbling, because that would create blurred images. Everything is ready for the entrance of the sloth bear. Its teeth may look frightening, but to defend itself, it primarily uses its crescent-shaped claws. During a break, Oliver notices that Indian plant life knows how to defend itself too.
Because of those horns.
Ivo, do you have tweezers?
In the guest house.
Look at this. This one nearly went through, and one did go through. Snapped in half. And that bit is in my foot now.
Even shoe soles centimeters thick are no obstacle for this type of thorn.
I just pulled it out with my teeth. It was stuck in my shoe. It completely disappeared into the sole. One went through and broke, unfortunately, and is in my foot. That bit, the tip.
Why on earth do you look like that?
I hopped here. I hopped for 2 kilometers from the toilet.
Shoes. Yeah, you should not sniff on those shoes.
Deadly poison.
Ivo, I really don't need to hear your silly commentary.
Maybe you
Perhaps you could give me my shoe.
Oh, it stinks.
Hello, those are feet. They work hard every day. And they shower every day. I don't dare walk anywhere now. These things pierce through everything. If I'd run, this would have gone completely into my foot. But because I was only walking...
Can we go now?
Do sloth bears get thorns in the soles of their feet? This is a question Ivo and Oliver had to leave unanswered. After they had filmed at the entrance of the cave, they wanted to film directly in the cave.
A bit of noise.
First of all, they have to make certain there is no one at home. When surprised, sloth bears are quick to attack with their long claws. In India, they cause more mortalities than tigers and leopards put together. Oliver is quick to notice this crevice in the rock is more suited to a contortionist. But if a bear can fit through it, so can he.
Okay, Ivo, camera.
It's a really tight squeeze. However, a few bats live here, and I love them, as is well known. And this is a wonderful spot.
I don't want to be a bear.
Oliver's gymnastics have been worthwhile.
But such a beauty cave. Wow.
Together with his Indian colleague Ashima Narayan, he looks for the perfect picture.
Isn't it a nice position here for the main camera? Oh. Wow. That's so beauty.
Yeah, and the light is so nice.
So now you're in the movie as well.
Oliver will have to squeeze through the crevice every day now in order to get the film material and recharge the batteries. The filmmakers have gained a fantastic insight into the family life of a bear mother. Suddenly, a curious male appears on the scene. The she-bear isn't having any of this. Even though he weighs twice as much, when encountering so much verve, he decides to retreat. Sloth bears certainly prove that they have a fine grasp of things. The following morning, Ivo and Oliver want to take aerial shots from a hot air balloon. Oliver is a trifle queasy.
Right now, just as the sun is coming up, we've discovered that we're standing in a cemetery, which means we're launching from a cemetery. I can't believe it. My stomach's churning.
This isn't a good omen. A few years ago, while on location in Russia, the two of them crashed with their hot air balloon. Ivo was badly injured. Even so, nothing holds them back from their attempt to capture the long-desired shots. Thankfully, it's ideal ballooning weather. Beneath them, the bizarre rock landscape of Kamchatka unfolds. All of a sudden, there's a problem. The burner has gone out. The gas is contaminated and is blocking the nozzles. The balloon pilot has no other choice than to make an emergency landing.
This'll be hard.
Do we hang on the big door? Don't worry. Will we fall down?
The pilot is more or less unscathed and runs to Oliver's aid. He's not in a good way. He's not getting any air. Thankfully, after a while, his breathing becomes normal.
You're fine? 100%?
Ja, das war ja, also, der ließ wirklich fast gar nicht gleich im Kopf. Das dachte ich auch.
I thought we'd be badly injured.
When I looked at that rock, I could see quite a drop. If we'd banged against it, we would have fallen 30 meters vertically downwards.
Hey, do you want to get back into a balloon?
Of course, even after 2 balloon accidents.
The team has only suffered a little shock. Oliver has sprained his elbow and bruised his chest. Ivo and the pilot only have a few scratches and light bruises to show.
Oh, the rock is tight. See, luckily
It
you
looks
don't hit
very
it.
nice.
Yeah.
I think all equipment has been...
A blessing in disguise. If they had bumped into the tip of this boulder, the balloon journey would have ended fatally. Very dodgy transportation, wild animals, the unpredictable powers of nature, an ordinary day in the life of wildlife filmmakers who want to be where the action is. When filmmakers set off, they expose themselves to angry, to hungry, and to big animals, risking life and limb to capture amazing images. Here we present some of the most exciting wildlife encounters ever captured on film. Flowing through the heart of Alaska, the Yukon River. Filmmaker Andreas Keeling is taking his family along for the first time on a film expedition. The current speeds them along. Andreas knows the river is tricky. Every few kilometers, it branches off in new directions, and maps are not always correct.
Let's take the right channel.
Yes.
They reach the notorious Five-Finger Rapids. The river is virtually squeezed past 4 large boulders. The rapids have cost many lives. Andreas is totally concentrated as he steers the boat through the narrow channel.
Eric, hundreds of people have drowned in these rapids. They only had homemade boats that resembled shoeboxes, or very crude rafts. Many of them couldn't swim. No one had a life jacket. They had no experience at all. A lot of bad accidents have happened.
The next danger lurks ahead.
I think there's a gravel bank.
The fast-moving current contains a lot of scree and silt, creating sand and gravel banks. The Keelings are heading full speed towards one of them.
Speed up, otherwise the motor will stop. Eric, get the camera, quick.
I'm afraid, Mum. Keep cool.
Birgit Keeling keeps her cool. She's used to dangerous situations. No one's been hurt. Only the boat has sprung a leak, and they've run aground on a gravel bank.
Listen, Eric, you too. The boat may tip, but don't worry, the keel will stabilize it. Capsizing is impossible.
To make matters worse, the weather has turned. The family must wait until the hail stops. The mood on board shifts. They're painfully aware that the next village is at least 200 kilometers away.
Guys, winter's here. Get your fur hats.
Eric and Tore use the opportunity for a summer snowball fight.
Cold!
Quicker than expected, help is at hand. The Indians tow the boat free, but there's a bit of repair work for Andreas to do. The wildlife filmmaker amongst elks. In Alaska, of all places, where the elks are the largest on Earth. This doesn't stop Andreas Keeling from filming the bulls in the rutting season. but he keeps his eyes open. Rutting elks can be extremely aggressive. The bull is irritated. His right eye has been injured, so he's blind on one side. He can only sense Andreas by his scent. Andreas knows the risk he is taking, but it's only possible to get this close to the elks in the rutting season. Then they're preoccupied and forget the presence of a human being. But they could also attack without warning. If you're kicked by their sharp hooves, you'll be badly injured, possibly even killed. But the animals continue to ignore him. He manages to get some fantastic shots. No one has filmed rutting elks this close. But don't copy this example. In November, after the rutting season, Andreas will carry on down the Yukon to the Arctic Sea. The biggest problem is getting in or out of the canoe, because the banks of the river are beginning to freeze over. At temperatures of minus 15 degrees, wet clothing is lethal. Andreas has to get a fire going as soon as possible. If he allowed himself to get colder, he would fall asleep and freeze to death. But getting a fire lit is an easy task for an adventurer like him. He has to keep the fire going at all cost and keep collecting fresh firewood. He has to warm up as quickly as possible. His trousers are as stiff as board. Defrosting them is a slow business. At long last, Andreas has been lucky and is ready to face new adventures. There are no roads or paths leading through the gates of the Arctic National Park. Here in the north of Alaska, a team wants to film grizzlies. How will the bears react to humans?
Randy, my guide, always takes an old rifle along. Well, I don't know. We've never actually shot anything with it. We had an electric fence, but he didn't look particularly convincing. If the bear had smelt a tasty meal, and if he'd really tried to get to us, he'd have been successful. The bears noticed our camp, of course. We always thought that sooner or later, one of them would approach the fence and get an electric shock.
Ooh, I think that might just be enough.
Occasionally, after catching fish, some of those bears came across the hills to dig up roots. Sometimes they came close to our camp, very close.
There's a bear. I'm gonna go hide in my tent.
I might not come closer. I might just be careful and go away.
They leave Randy and Uwe alone. The omnivores don't attempt to get into the camp. The river provides them with enough food.
The salmon migration is one of the rare opportunities to get a lot of food in a short time. A good reason for the grizzlies to catch as much as they can.
The bears are not particularly afraid of humans.
Right at the start, the very first bear we came across a young male, crossed the river, and he came very close to us.
Uwe knows. It's the young bears who are interested in warm-blooded prey. The adults prefer to catch fish.
I left the camera running, but we got out our pepper spray. I thought, I'm sure that we'll have to spray it at him. It was a dodgy situation. I felt the bear had come much too close. Nobody knew what would happen. It was our first day and our first bear. Quite tricky.
Randy and Uwe have a funny feeling. But the bears aren't really interested in the two-legged creatures. They can happily continue filming. In the expansive swamps of Florida, the Everglades, a Hungarian wildlife filmmaker sets off on a dangerous expedition.
I haven't been really in such place where actually the animals can hurt you.
Zoltán Török wants to film alligators. He's not afraid of them, although quite a few people are killed by alligator attacks each year.
We are on the way to an alligator nest. We want to film the alligator mother as she's guarding the nest. It's about 300 meters or 900 feet away from here. And we have this special tool because we want to get close to her. So let's see how she will react if she bites this or not. Let's go. Of course there are alligators in the water, but you just have to take care not to step on them. It's very easy.
Accidents do keep happening.
I think those accidents mostly happen where people are feeding them or they are getting too close, I mean really very close. If there is a big male alligator in the wilderness, I wouldn't go too close to it because, you know, it's just dangerous.
This is the hammock, the tree island, where the alligator nest is located. We are just approaching very quietly. Hopefully she's on the nest or somewhere around. But they are very protective, so we have to be very careful.
The female really is guarding her nest.
She comes over there. Yeah. She might come a bit too close. Then we have to back off a little bit. But she already knows us. So I think I start to shoot now. She's there. That's it, musta kuuluu. I think we are only about 10 feet, about 3 meters away from her.
The alligators, basically, they are very good mothers. I think that's pretty hard work, you know, to be there for more than 2 months, not eating, not going away from the nest, and just taking care of the nest in case a predator comes. She's now in the right position, but we have to get close to her, so we use the small camera.
She's cute, we call her Princess.
I pretty much liked her. Actually, you feel privileged that you are so close to a wild, dangerous animal. I felt lucky. Anybody who has seen an alligator mother with the babies, you know, you are just melting away. I think they were just lovely as they crawled up to the head of the mother. It's really a lovely picture.
But their teeth are as sharp as knives.
It was a wonderful Sunday. My wife, my little daughter and I took the boat out, but it was just one of those days.
On the west coast of North America, the marine biologist Florian Grainer wants to film whales.
Only 25 minutes later, I found orcas. I had to speed up to 30 knots, and the whales came flying past.
I
could see the orcas harassing a grey whale, but it was a grey whale mother with her calf, so they were both in danger.
A scene like this has hardly ever been filmed.
She was fighting like a champ. It was a dramatic fight. She was lashing out, swimming in circles to protect her calf. It was a battle of giants.
The whales are still quite far away from the boat, but getting closer and closer.
All of a sudden, she was tired and had to leave her calf.
Florian has crossed the path of the gigantic beasts.
She very quickly made a sharp turn and swam at high speed towards our boat, still fighting off the orcas. The last one of the orcas finally turned, but he was close to the boat. He used it as a kind of shield. Of course, the whales lashed out with their tails in every direction and hit the boat badly. Its swimming platform broke off and was sent flying 20 meters through the air. The boat's propeller was out of order. For 4.5 minutes, it was a hell of a ride. My 2.5-year-old daughter was crying. After 4.5 minutes, the whales left. Our boat was smaller than the whales, but big enough so they couldn't slide over it and press it down. I'll never forget the moment the whale mother came near the boat and looked deep into my eyes. She looked at me full of suffering.
Kruger National Park in South Africa. Its rich wildlife has made it the ideal location for generations of filmmakers. But only a few, like Jürgen Józefowicz, seek out the largest and most dangerous animals.
Kruger Park is bush. Animals hide easily here. You have to get close to the animals if you want to find them. Living in Kruger Park is a big adventure. The longer I've stayed, the more I've felt, here's the life I want to live.
Jürgen has a way with animals.
Some people are aggressive and animals feel that. I am not an aggressive man by nature, and because of that, I'm able to work with them.
Even the 2-ton heavy rhino bull senses that Jürgen poses no threat.
It had always been my dream to travel to Kruger Park. I guess I will never complete my work, but I think I will die here if they don't send me home. After a while, Africa is in your blood.
Sometimes Jürgen takes his children into the bush with him, but that's not often.
I had to rely on Jürgen completely. I always fear for him if he's gone into the bush, and the children as well. When Pa is gone, we're all waiting for him. Perhaps he won't come back, but fortunately, he always has.
Jürgen's biggest passion is lions.
My daughter was 3 months and my son 3.5 years old. We were sitting outside the caravan and all of a sudden it stank terribly. I asked, who's passed wind? Not me. The children said, not us, Dad. So I said, then we have to get into the caravan. There's a lion. The wind was in the right direction. You could smell the lion. A little bit later, we heard it. Your senses become much more acute out there.
Jürgen knows that the lioness is looking after her cubs. He decides to follow her, staying close on her heels. He wants to enter the lioness's den. Now he knows where she has hidden her cubs and takes the biggest risk in his filmmaker's career.
I still dream about my foolishness. I said to myself, Jürgen, if she comes back now, you're dead. But I had to go in. I'd seen where the lioness had gone, and I knew that her kill was about 3 kilometers away. So I calculated that she had about 15 minutes to return to the den. I crawled into the den with my camera. It was a tight squeeze. If she had returned while I was in the den, I'd have been dead.
The newly born lion babies don't like the look of this guy. As loudly as possible, they start calling for their mother. Jürgen's life is in danger.
As they say, even the best picture isn't worth dying for. But at that very moment, I didn't care.
When the lioness returns, he has left the den. Jürgen has gained her trust. She can smell that he's been close to her cubs, and no harm has come to them. From now on, he can film her at night. He films images only possible when an animal has complete trust. Kinshasa, the capital city of the Democratic Republic of Congo. From here, the wildlife filmmakers Christina Karliczek and Heike Grebe set off for the River Congo. But they have to get clear of the urban jungle first. 2 security officials are their constant companions. It's impossible to do anything without them. Finally, they sight their destination, the Congo. Camerawoman Christina can't wait and starts filming first impressions from the driving car. Sounds like trouble. And it is. It's what they feared.
When I was filming out of the window, we got into trouble with a military kind.
Trouble with the police. The 2 security officials sort out the situation while the camera is switched off. After several hours, the team reaches its first destination, the huge rapids at the Livingstone Falls. Along a length of 350 kilometers, the Congo drops through narrow gorges and deep valleys. These savage rapids are impossible to navigate. For humans, they are deadly. Even so, fishermen risk their lives in tearing current.
There's another fisherman, close to the rapids, standing in the middle of the tributary. He's casting his net. It's fascinating to see them working like that. They have cast their nets very close to the rapids, or between the rapids. They get there by canoe. In the morning, 2 men died after they tried to haul their nets. Another one survived.
In a thoughtful mood, the filmmakers continue their journey. They want to join up with colleague Thomas Behrendt, who is filming chimpanzees in the rainforest. Thomas has a totally relaxed male in front of his lens. But that changes when other chimps start appearing on the scene.
That sounds spooky, doesn't it?
Keep on going.
What will happen when the animals come across each other? Not a moment to be missed.
He's so fast. You cannot follow him.
Chimpanzees are used to running through the thick undergrowth. Not so the filmmakers. Heike has lost her orientation in the swamp.
I lost the others. Did they go this way?
Okay, we've lost the other ones. There it goes, into the mud.
Da liegt sie mitten im Schlamm. Okay,
Filming whilst running is a bad idea.
I don't know.
No idea where they are. Damned.
The angry cries from the rival chimpanzees lead Heike back to the team.
Get out the camera, come on!
Thomas keeps his distance. The males might want to scare off rivals, but as excited as they are, their anger could be directed at him. But then they disappear off into the depths of the rainforest. Elsewhere, Christina has found bonobos, the dainty relatives of chimpanzees. The animals are agitated. Christina tries to follow them with her camera. High up in the treetops, 2 bonobo groups encounter one another. Will there be trouble? On the contrary, bonobos solve arguments peacefully. In contrast to the chimpanzees, the bonobo motto is make love, not war. They've already calmed down. Christina's conclusion? The tough going in the jungle was worthwhile. She has some fantastic images. The Canadian Arctic, a place of extremes. The thermometer can fall below -40 degrees Celsius. A camera team wants to film Arctic wolves and sets course for Ellesmere Island, the northernmost island of Canada. But before shooting, they have to dress warmly. Some are quicker dressers than others. Oliver Goetzl and Ivo Nörenberg hope they won't be kept waiting in the icy wilderness. Their wish comes true. A musk ox carcass has attracted the wolves. Ivo and Oliver are lucky. The number of wolves are spread out over a region half the size of Germany. They hadn't expected to get this close. Do they really just want to play? It would appear so. Hopefully, technology won't let them down. The young wolf takes a lively interest in the equipment, but it isn't an easy prey. Assistance is needed. The wolves must pull together. Oliver wants to end the game before something gets broken. A tug of war with wolves, an Arctic sport? One 0 for Oliver. The wolves are good losers. They act as if nothing has happened and withdraw with dignity. Spain's northwest coast, rugged and remote. Here there is little evidence of human civilization. In the province of Galicia lies the notorious Costa da Morte, the Death Coast. It's the preserve of the Perceberos, the goose barnacle collectors. One of them is Francisco José Soto Barrero, known as Paco.
I've always been attracted to the sea, though not professionally. As a child, I often came here fishing with my father. We used to collect worms as a lure, but also goose barnacles. Maybe I made my choice back then. I've now been collecting goose barnacles for 7 years.
Dangerous and hard work. The barnacles cling tightly to the rocks. Francisco has to prise them off by hand. Paco's workplace is close to the wild breakers of the Atlantic. One small slip could prove fatal. Paco has a feeling for the waves. 7 years of work have sharpened his senses. You have to read the ocean to survive. Not everyone can. The memorials on the Costa da Morte bear witness to this.
I do get scared sometimes. I knew some people who died collecting goose barnacles. Sometimes you just get into dangerous situations. It all happens so quickly. You slip and smash your head on one of the rocks. Or you underestimate the power of a wave and get taken out to sea by it. It's easy to get killed in this job.
And yet, day after day, Paco takes this risk. To keep the population stable, the collecting of goose barnacles is strictly regulated. Incidentally, their name is misleading. They belong to the crustaceans. Paco's tremendous effort is only worthwhile because the strange seafood fetches crazy prices in gourmet restaurants. That's why he braves the exhausting trip to the offshore islands. Here are the biggest and most valued specimens. The prices have dropped.
Nowadays, it's really hard to make anything from collecting goose barnacles. I always make light of it by saying that I don't really live from my job, but rather from my wife's. It was a lot easier some 3-4 years ago, but today it's impossible to feed a family on it.
The ferrada, an iron rod, is used to prise the barnacles off the rock. After a peek into the next crevice, he ducks the coming wave. Just weeks after the filming finished, Paco drowned in the sea. The Costa da Morte remains deadly, even for the most experienced. The White Cliffs of Dover, England's landmark. The cliffs may be high, but the channel is shallow and dangerous for large ships. But for large creatures and filmmakers, these waters are paradise because they are rich in food.
It's passing you by closely. Quick!
A huge shark.
Are we sliding over them right now?
Florian Greiner and Natalie Tesche-Ricciardi discover more scary-looking fins. The marine biologist wants to get an overview of the situation. Basking sharks. They grow almost 10 meters long and are the second largest fish in the world, only surpassed by the whale shark. Natalie is thrilled. She's been diving for years, but has never seen a basking shark. Florian is onlooker as she dares to approach the wide-open mouth of the giant. That's enough. Back to the boat. Thankfully, the basking shark is only interested in plankton. Water passes through its gills, which filter out the tiny organisms. So the shark doesn't need teeth. Still better to keep a safe distance. Its skin is like very rough sandpaper.
Awesome shots. He nearly ran into me.
I've seen that. He was diving down just behind you.
He really gave me a wary look.
Yes.
Florian can't contain himself. Plankton eater or not, he still felt uneasy as the huge mouth came swimming towards him.
But its tail went like this. I had to...
A blow from the huge tail fin wouldn't have been a nice experience. But all's well that ends well. Basking shark and diving team happily go their separate ways. Greenland, an icy, hostile place. Home to many polar bears. The gigantic island is sparsely populated. Filmmaker Uwe Anders has to set up camp, even if that means arousing the bears' interest.
If you're traveling on foot through areas which are home to polar bears and have to set up camp there, you need to be on the alert all the time. As we had no night guards, we surrounded our tents with an electro fence. We also attached a wire to its battery in order to fire a signal pistol. We made sure that everybody would wake up if a bear came near the camp.
Everyone's on standby as a bear appears in broad daylight.
For bears, the small hut behind these scientists is the most interesting place, because there the smell of food is particularly strong, and a bear is always hungry. But because of all those people standing there, he couldn't go there, so he concentrated on all the sweet-smelling things further away from the hut. And that's the shower, where the dishes are done as well, which means you might find some leftover food in the small stream. The bear's able to smell goodies even through a closed lid. It's fascinating how skillfully and carefully he opens the box. No brute force used.
But his nose signals it's a dud. He's not one to give in easily and has found some toothpaste. I wonder what that tastes like. The bear's verdict? Disgusting. But wasn't there something else?
Even this camp shower is treated very softly. He doesn't knock it down but bites into it carefully, using only one of his teeth, and only small amounts of water trickle out. Who could have imagined that a mighty beast would act like this?
The bear retreats, even if he knows there is something to eat somewhere. Oh well, tomorrow's another day. Kamchatka, land of volcanoes and hot springs. Elemental forces are still forming the peninsula. Here, in the far east of Russia, the Earth is in constant motion, a precarious place to film.
In Kamchatka, our most stunning experience was that huge landslide. You cannot imagine what its dimensions were like. My assistant noticed it first and called, "Over there, get out of the hut." But he was unable to tell me what was happening.
On the 3rd of June 2007, a gigantic mudslide rolled towards their hut in the valley of geysers.
I jumped out of my bed and ran out of the hut. And I'll never forget the moment I was walking through its door. Everything around me, all the mountains were in motion.
The earth masses buried large parts of the valley beneath them.
Two minutes later, it was all over. Only much later did it occur to me that the situation was really life-threatening. The mudslide stopped only centimeters before it reached the hut, as if God's hand had stopped it. Unbelievable.
It was a miracle no one was injured.
Later, as we were flying over the mudslide in the helicopter, we looked down at the kilometers of devastation, and our hut looked like a tiny island in the center of it. We survived because we had a lot of luck. That was a close call, really.
The World Natural Heritage and protected Valley of the Geysers has changed its face for good. It will take decades until humans can venture into these valleys again. In Finland, the wildlife filmmakers Goetzl and Ivo Nörenberg want to film aerial shots from a hot air balloon. However, Ivo has just recently recovered from a bad ballooning accident in Russia.
On our first filming expedition after the accident, we went to Finland. And first thing on the agenda in February was to take aerial shots from a balloon. When we were airborne, my stomach churned, as if somebody was continuously stirring it around with a big cooking spoon.
It was quite an uncomfortable feeling to get into the balloon again, and almost immediately after the takeoff, it touched the treetops.
After 10 minutes, we hit the first fir tree. It was quite unpleasant bumping into it.
That was just a taste of things to come.
Having flown over uninhabited land, we weren't able to land anywhere. There was only one road, and we had to land exactly there.
You throw a line, and it gets tangled in a fir tree, a pine or a spruce. But you've got so much momentum the tree starts to bend. Then branches and fir cones fly up into your face. And the balloon crosses the street, crashes into the trees on the other side of the road. After that, the burner ignites one of the firs, which means there's a fire above us.
The pilot has to continue burning gas to keep the balloon inflated, so it doesn't collapse onto the burning branches and sets fire.
All the hands were ready to haul the balloon down.
You immediately think of your previous crash, but the same day we got into the balloon again because the sun came out, and we felt all right. This flight was okay.
This time they escaped with no more than a fright and fantastic aerial views from Finland. Cape Hatteras on the east coast of the USA. Rings of bubbles show humpback whales are hunting here. Seabirds wait for their portions. The whales circle their prey and blow out air, creating nets of bubbles. Into these, small crabs and fish crowd together. The whales just have to suck them in. By diving into the rabble, the wildlife filmmaker Rick Rosenthal wants to get spectacular pictures of the underwater hunt.
Got it, Rick?
A risky business. Even if humpback whales are harmless for humans, they can grow nearly 10 meters long and weigh up to 36 tons. Their mouths as big as a barn door. Their tail fins that could clobber you. Good reasons not to get too close. All of a sudden, Rick encounters a swarm of tuna. Like torpedoes, they shoot into the net of bubbles, exploiting the whale's hunting technique. They pop up directly next to Rick. Rick is nearly bowled over. Then he is caught in the net of bubbles. Everyone on board is worried. Rick is nowhere to be seen. But the underwater specialist is fine.
Whoa, was that something? Following the tunas, they're right below me. Tunas are going towards the humpback whales. Here comes the sandland, the bait fish. I'm looking down and it's next thing I know, I'm in the net. Bubbles are right back of me. I can't get out. The bait fish, the sandlands are rocketing up to get away from the whales. I just see white water, like a washing machine. Here comes the big whale, right next to the camera. Closes the mouth. That's the closest I've been to being swallowed by a humpback whale.
How easy this dive could have gone wrong. Rick was very lucky. As are the many wildlife filmmakers worldwide who go about their dangerous work every day to capture fantastic images of our planet.